Welcome to the Anxious Child Podcast, the podcast that helps you best work with anxious kids and teens. Now, here's your host, Stephen Quinlan.
Hello, everyone. Well, it is sort of a bittersweet day here at the Anxious Child Podcast. It's been about a year since I first started the podcast, and as I've talked about on some of the previous episodes, it is moving on to a new iteration of itself. The new podcast is going to be called Practice Growth. My goal for this podcast is to specifically help therapists move on from their self-limiting beliefs when it comes to their work, their businesses, and also themselves. There's so much that I've learned from doing the Anxious Child podcast in the last year, and I really want to take a moment and just acknowledge that. I've been able to talk to people all over the world who are experts in their field. I've made some really great friends that I'm still in contact with, and that has all just been amazing. There's certainly a lot to cover when it comes to looking at childhood anxiety, but I really started to get the sense that I had gone as far as I could go with it. I wanted to be able to use this platform to help people in a broader way. And recently, the universe has started steering me in this direction. I've had a number of conversations with colleagues who were struggling to keep doing the work that they're doing and be able to help others while also taking care of themselves. And this struck me really as a tragedy given the extreme need that there is, especially right now in the world, not only just for mental health services in general, but really for quality mental health services. So my thought was that I could do more good and hopefully affect more change on a broader and more macro level. Thus, the idea for Practice Growth was born. One of the things that I really like, even about just the title of this podcast, is that it's not just about being able to grow your practice as a therapist, but it's a more comprehensive idea than just the business side of things. And although that is certainly important, as you need to be able to support yourself and potentially your family, but it's also important to be able to continue that spirit of growth within yourself that we aspire to ignite in the people that we're trying to help as well. So in that sense, while the podcast in its new form is definitely geared towards therapists, I'm hopeful that there are things that can be taken away from it that apply to really just everyone as a human being as well. Continuing to grow is a practice. I know for me personally, moving into a private practice and making some other changes in my life had a monumental impact across the board for me and allow me to continue to do the work that I'm doing today. So I want to pass that on to people who can hopefully then pass that on to others. So that's really what this is all about. I do also want to acknowledge that there is a bit of a loss here in terms of there not being any new episodes of the Anxious Child podcast coming out, and I wrestled with this quite a bit, but I couldn't ignore what direction I was being pulled in, and when I thought about things on a broader level, I thought this made the most sense. I will keep up all the episodes from this last year, so you can go back and listen to them or check out some of the ones that you might have missed. I know there are a lot of therapists that listen to this show, and the transition will probably feel somewhat more seamless for them, but I do want to acknowledge those of you who are parents, who are not therapists, that this is an ending, but as is so often the case in life, where one thing ends, another thing begins. And I'm really excited about the potential of this new format and also some of the guests that we have already lined up who are really just phenomenal and have exciting stories that are super inspirational to share. As always, if you want to reach out to me and share what you think about this, I'm all ears. For those of you who have been along with me in this journey, I extend my heartfelt thanks and appreciation and sincere hope that this has been helpful to you in some way. I know that I've taken a lot away from it, and I hope that you have as well. So with that being said, let's look forward to the future and continuing our own practices of growing as human beings, helpers, parents, wives, husbands, whatever it is for you. And I hope in some way to be a small part of your journey as you have been in mine. I look forward to the first episode of Practice Growth coming out next week with our first guest, Dr. Cami Froud, who I have to say really embodied the spirit of exactly what I was thinking when I first came up with this format. I think you will really enjoy her story, and I can't wait to share it with all of you. So until next time, be well and be in touch.
This podcast is not intended as medical or psychological treatment. In no way should it replace treatment from a mental health professional.